on the Texas A&M Sports Network from Learfield. Live from Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue on Harvey Road in College Station. Welcome to the Joni Taylor Coaches Show, presented by Coors Light, mountain cold refreshment made to chill. 2023 Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Celebrate responsibly. Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue. Visit Rudy's.com to find real Texas barbecue near you. And by Twisted Tea, hard iced tea for the 12th man. Please drink responsibly. Now, the Joni Taylor Coaches Show.
And hi again, everybody. Welcome out to Rudy's Barbecue. It is the Joni Taylor Radio Show with Coach Joni Taylor. I'm Steve Miller. Great to have you guys with us. We will be here until 7 o'clock. We're on Harvey Road at the Rudy's Barbecue location. Just look for the medians, and you'll find us right here in College Station. The next game for the Aggies is Thursday. That's going to be 6:30 at Ole Miss. You can listen right here on the A&M Sports Network locally. That'll be Zone 1150, or watch on the SEC Network Plus. And then Sunday, the Aggies stay on the road, and they're at Kentucky, 3 o'clock Central Time. That'll also be on the A&M Sports Network locally, News Talk 1620, or you can watch that on the SEC Network. The Aggies 15-6 overall, 3-5 in the SEC. Won the first 11 games at home this season, but have dropped the last two at home, South Carolina, and the game against Mississippi State that we'll talk more about in just a few minutes. The next home game is not going to be for another 9 days. It's actually will be 11 days between the Mississippi State game and the Vanderbilt game coming up in another week. So the Aggies right now in a set of 4 of 5 on the road with 2 sets of what we'll call double roadies, if you will. That means Thursday night on the road, Sunday on the road, came back, played a game. Then we'll do the same thing this weekend. And Joni, great to have you with us. And how's traffic?
Oh, usual traffic. Now the students are back in town. I got in the car at 5:30, and here I am. So 30 minutes.
It's truly amazing
to go 2 miles.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. We were talking about the length of times between home games, and while we can't dictate the schedule, that seems to be more quirkier than normal. I know we've talked about it before, but now we're in the middle of it. It probably hasn't changed your opinion,
right.
But how do you canoe through this thing here?
Well, we talk about parameters, and the parameters say you can't have more than 2 in a row on the road. And so we don't have that, but we definitely have, like, back-to-back road trips is what it feels like. And so I think we talked about it today, and part of it is just, like, we can't control the schedule we're given. So how is this going to help us? How are we going to take what we've been given, right, and what kind of growth opportunity can we learn from it? Is that thinking about the SEC tournament? Is that thinking about the NCAA tournament? Is that, hey, you know what? We need to learn how to win on the road, back-to-back games. And so here we go. Let's figure that out. And so I think it's for us, instead of, it's hard, and we would love to be in a different situation, and it is a pretty atypical schedule. That's the conversation we have as coaches. When we get into the film room and on the practice floor, it is, you know what, this is going to be good for us. Maybe we don't know how that's going to look right now, but at some point, us going back-to-back, coming home, having a week off after we just had a week off, playing the game at home and going back on the road for back-to-back games, this is going to come in handy for us at some point. So let's look at it that way and prepare.
And I assume that there's not a formula for where and how the buys occur.
No, I think there is a parameter around the bye, and I'm going to put Kristen on the spot because I see her here, and I know she's going to come up and talk. She knows the parameters maybe better than me, but
if not, she can research them between now and then.
You do have to have like a certain amount of days in between the parameter, and it used to be that if you were playing like your rival, our rival right now is LSU, our partner, then you have to be on the same bye schedule as them if you were getting ready to play them. So there are some parameters around it. Ours just came a little sooner than we would have liked.
Yeah, it's very, very strange how it is shaken out this season. Speaking of strange, Sunday's game was a little strange.
Oh my goodness!
I know that you've watched it how many times since Sunday?
4.
Oh.
Normally it's 3, 4.
That seems to be one more bigger sigh than last week's Florida review, which was 3 and a 3.
I feel different than I did after the Florida loss, after the Georgia loss. Mississippi State's a really good team. They come at you in a lot of different areas. And if you would have told me we were going to hold Jessica Carter to 8 points, I would have said great. Jacayla Jordan to 11 points, I would have said great. But the fear we always had is they have 5 players who have scored over 1,200 in their career. So you shut down their 2 leading scorers, and then Aaron Barnum goes off for 18, and Rogers comes off the bench and goes off for 17, right? And that's why they're so dangerous. I think that watched it several times just to see like how we're getting our turnovers, why we're fouling, and then is there any correlation in our turnovers? And yes, the answer is yes to that. And, I think a lot of times it's either we're getting sped up or our turnovers are because of something that happened defensively, and now we are trying to get it back. Like we want to get a home run. So I gave up something on defense. Now I'm going to come down here and play too fast and do something on offense. Or if we're talking about defense, I didn't, I turned it over, or I missed a shot, I missed a layup, I missed a free throw. Now I'm still thinking about that, and I'm not doing what I should be doing on defense. And so whether it's offense to defense or defense to offense, we're having too many mistakes back to back, and it's because we're focusing on what just happened instead of what's the next best thing to do.
Let's talk about some of them. The ones that happen in transition seem to be where, hey, you're going down the floor, and it may be 1-on-2, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, whatever the combination would be. You feel like you have an advantage, and then
you don't.
Yeah,
we overshot Lauren twice. She runs the floor really well, and we just don't connect it. One time I think it was Sahara running the lane. We threw it out of bounds. I can live with those. Because that's being aggressive, that's running, that's in transition. The ones that are hard to swallow are when we're skip passing it and it goes in the third row of the courtside seats. Like that's come on. Those are the ones that are really hard. Or we dribble it off our leg out of bounds, or we're dribbling at baseline and we step out of bounds. Those are the ones that are difficult. If we're pushing in transition and we overpass somebody because they're running hard and we overrun them on the pass, I can deal with those. Those don't feel bad if you take away the other ones. The ones where we're just trying to pass and catch, we've got to eliminate those turnovers. Those are the ones that are hurting us.
You end up seeing maybe an inordinate number of skip passes when you're facing a zone. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Do you feel like we're thinking about that more in that situation? Like, I've got to be thinking of skip pass, and I may see somebody open, maybe not, or is it just a bad pass?
Well, it's a bad pass for sure. But they're trying to do the right thing. So Mississippi State was actually in a 1-3-1. And normally in a 1-3-1, you put your biggest player in the middle and you put your fastest player in the back because your fastest player is having to guard corner to corner. Well, they actually inverted and they put Jessica Carter in the back and they put Jacayla Jordan in the middle. But then when the ball goes to the corner, the middle person goes all the way to the corner. And so we were trying to expose, like, let's pass the ball to this side, make Jacayla come out, and then skip it because she's got to cover the skip pass too because they want Jessica Carter to stay in the paint. And so we were trying to get Jacayla going side to side. So it was open. We're trying to do the right thing. We're just not passing and catching.
So you don't get credit for doing the right thing. You end up getting a turnover or whatnot, which is the frustrating part of that. What is this game? How is this game different without, 21 fouls committed and 22 turnovers?
Yeah. Well, I think we win the game, obviously. You look at the points they scored off of our turnovers and the points they scored from the free throw line. Let's take away 8 of those in the fourth quarter because we were fouling to stop the clock. It's still too many. It's still too many. We're fouling way too much. And we don't get to the free throw line. We're, 7 for 9, I think. And so we've got to be more aggressive, not settle for jump shots. But if you eliminate the points they scored off of turnovers and the points from the free throw line, it's a win for us.
And it's a whole different mindset going forward.
Yep.
How do you try to recapture that?
Well, I told him after the game, hey, listen, like, we did some really good things. We've got to stop turning it over. We've got to stop fouling, which is why I said watching it, it felt different than Florida, than Georgia. Those games felt just pit in your stomach, like, bad. This one, obviously, you lose, it feels bad, but we did some good things out there in terms of how we moved the basketball, what we were trying to run, what our options were. We've got to be more consistent and value possessions on both ends. And so that's what we talked about today in film and worked on in practice.
Some of the good things start the game on a great run and come out in the third quarter after playing a so-so second quarter. How does that happen?
Again, I think number one is who we have on the floor in those combinations. And I think it's just being aggressive. Like, when we're aggressive and things are going well for us, we look really, really good. And so we've got to learn how to I tell them all the time, be your best when your best is needed. And in this league, your best is always needed. There's not a night where your best is not needed. And so not being front runners, but being people who are consistent in what they do and showing up all the time.
17 assists, 25 field goals seems like a pretty good ratio.
We share the ball really well. We got, I don't know we shot it 65 times. Is that right? How many times did they shoot it?
They shot it 58 times. You shot it 63 times.
63. So again, like even in our losses, we're getting more shot attempts than our opponents. So we're getting shots up. Are we taking the right shots? We're sharing the basketball. Those are things that we look at, like in that. What are common themes in our wins and in our losses? Is how we start. It's been our turnovers. It's been free throws, and then very rarely does this happen. But when we've had less than 10 assists, that normally is not a good indicator for us either.
As a shooter, how do you decide what's a good shot, what's not a good shot?
Are you ready to shoot it? Are your feet set, and is it from your spot? Like, we have analytics that tell us for every single player, like, are you in the green here? Are you in the white here? Or are you in the red? And we've played 21 games now, so there's enough information to let everybody know, like, this is where you shoot the ball really well from. You don't shoot the ball really well from here. And I think we know that about our team, but being able to hand that to them now gives them, like, the factual evidence to say, like, that's not a good shot for you. But I think the biggest thing is number one, being confident, and that comes from putting in the work, right? Your rep is made through your reps. Buzz says it all the time. You get your rep through your reps, and that's reps in practice. So are you getting up shots in the gym by yourself? Are you putting in extra work? But when it comes to playing, like, are you shot ready? Are your feet set? Are you on balance? And is it your shot? Is it a good shot?
I assume that data is also known by your opponent.
Absolutely it is. We pull it up for everybody we play.
And what do you glean from that? And are you able to translate that? And does that resonate the same for an opponent? If I'm the A&M player, I'm so focused on myself. Do I also have time to think about my opponent? And how do you manage that?
Yeah, so we don't show the team all that information. It's a lot to process. We just kind of, in a scouting report, will say we've got to take away this, right? Against Florida, it was take away slot drive. We didn't do that. Against Missouri, it's obviously take away threes. Against South Carolina or LSU, it's take away second chance opportunities because of what the stats tell us about that. So we don't give it to them. I don't know if they could process it or understand it. It's so much, but we try to give them, like, what is plan A? That's let's take those things away. And then for us as a staff, like, Ole Miss is a good example, and we look at their shot chart. It's very clear where they want to get shots from. And so our goal defensively is to be able to make it really tough for them to get to their spot.
One of the games, I forget which one, I can't remember if it was Missouri or Florida, that all seemed to run together to me, probably not to you. But what happens when a team decides, hey, I'm just not guarding you?
Yes, Missouri.
Missouri.
Yeah.
We're not guarding you. We'll be over here waiting for you to do something.
Yeah, well, Missouri is known for doing that against teams who don't shoot the ball really well. We average 3 made threes a game. Just to put that in perspective, Missouri averages like 8 or 9. South Carolina averages 7 made a game, so that we're in the bottom in that category. So we knew Missouri wasn't going to guard us. And so we try to prep for that as best we can, with our practice guys, so our players understand, like, okay, you're open for a reason. Like, be ready to take the shot, but it doesn't mean you have to take it first time you get it. And so we try to do some things to really move them around and put them in the best position possible, knowing that we're not going to be guarded.
India Rogers ended up with 5 3-pointers. She had 6 made baskets, so she was 5 of 12 from long range, 1 of 4 from just field goal range. What do you think of that ratio?
I'm fine with Indy taking that amount of threes or shots. She should, based on our percentage as a team and her percentage as an individual, she has the green light to shoot 3. Yeah.
And she answered that. She seemed to answer the call.
She did. I think that's the most threes she's made in a game this year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No,
yeah.
It was definitely her most at Texas A&M. Aisha Coulibaly seems to just be consistent.
Mm-hmm. She is. Again, she's on the floor a ton. She has a really high efficiency rating. She leads us in minutes because she's so versatile in what she does, and she also is someone who affects it on both ends of the basketball. So whether it's, guarding the best player for the other team, going to rebound it, passing it, scoring it, she's just someone who you can move around in a lot of different places, and she's a hard match for our opponents.
I didn't look it up, but Lauren Ware seemed to play a ton of minutes in that game. What did you think of her performance?
I think Lauren's been, she's someone who, for the amount of time she practices, it's really incredible what she does on game days. We modify her quite a bit just because of just some challenges she has with her knee, and we want to make sure we're taking care of her long-term health. Hopefully she has a really long basketball career, 2 more here with us, and then whatever she decides to do beyond that. And so we want to modify her. So for her to be in the shape that she's in, to play the minutes that she plays, and we've slowly throughout the year just progressed her more and more and more, so that we can let her maximize games and then really minimize her load during practice.
All right, that's Joni Taylor. I'm Steve Miller. Coming up on the program, we'll have some more with Joni Taylor. We'll also be visited by our Deputy Athletic Director, Kristen Brown. And we're getting ready for a double roadie. It's Ole Miss and Kentucky this week. We're live at Rudy's Barbecue. It's the Joni Taylor Radio Show from Learfield. Head on over to your local Rudy's or Rudy's.com to place an order for their real Texas barbecue. Enjoy 100% oak smoked meats, delicious sides, and Rudy's signature sauce. And don't forget, Rudy's serves made-to-order and grab-and-go breakfast tacos every day until 10 a.m. We are at Rudy's Barbecue. It is the Joni Taylor Radio Show with Joni Taylor. I'm Steve Miller. Texas A&M getting set to take on Ole Miss Thursday, 6:30. And that'll be on the road, as will Sunday's game at Kentucky, 3 o'clock start for that. We are another week and change away from the next home game, which will be against Vanderbilt. One of the things that we talked about on our pregame show that most of the fans may not have heard is you either ask the team rhetorically or not, essentially, who are we?
Right.
Tell us who we are.
So when we are showing up in the right space, we are a team that plays together, is identified by our defensive, prowess. A team that is, we actually have shirts that say defense travels, and so defense is who we are. But plays for each other and plays hard offensively, plays with a ton of pace, and just has a toughness about him that has a resiliency feel to it.
Who does the team think they are?
Depends on the day. You guys have heard them. They think that that's who they are sometimes,
yeah.
And then sometimes they think they are a team who offensively can maybe do more than they can. And listen, we want them to have a ton of confidence. We want them to believe in their offensive gifts, and they do. We are very, very talented. But defense has to be who we are first. And I think sometimes we think we can outscore people, and that's not how we're good. That's not how we're built. And so if we take care of what we're supposed to do on the defensive end, then offense will take care of itself.
How do you evaluate your defense to this point in the season? Still very high in the national rating, seems to be consistently, statistically speaking. How is it from the coach's viewpoint?
It could be better. I mean, we're in the top 10 in a lot of defensive categories, and I think if you were to ask most coaches, they would say that's really, really good, and it's not bad. But I think what the standard is the standard. And defensively, we at one point were the number one team nationally in the country in like 3 defensive categories. Obviously, that gets harder as you start playing conference games, but we definitely should be in the top 5 in a lot of those categories. And so that's the thing, like, you guys know what a turkey is, right, from men's basketball. We call it a kill. And most teams say you have to get 3 in a row to get a turkey or 3 in a row to get a kill. Our standard is 5. You don't get a kill unless you get 5 stops in a row. So while most people say 3 and celebrate 3, we celebrate 5. If you didn't get 5, then it's not good enough. And so our standard has to be what we're capable of, just like everybody else's team's standard is what they're capable of. And so defensively, we're capable of some really, really good things. And so, yes, are we good defensively? Absolutely. Could we be better than we are? Sure.
Are we averaging in those kill ranges? Are we averaging 2, 3, 4? Where are we at in trying to get to 5?
So the Missouri game, first quarter, we had 7 kills in the first half. That's impressive. That means 7 times 5, like you do the math. That means 7 different times we got 5 stops in a row. That's impressive against teams in this league. And then you look at the Florida game, right, the very next game, and I don't think we got an entire kill the first half, and then we're down, and we come out the third quarter, and we get 2 kills in the third quarter alone. And so, again, it's want to, it's lock in, it's focus, and it's doing it all the time.
Back-to-back games where you come out on fire to start the second half. What are you serving up in there?
Honestly, we tell them all the time, like, we're calling out stats, so we're bringing some things to their attention. Hey, guys, we've got too many turnovers. Ball hadn't touched the paint in this amount of time. We're not back there drawing up secret plays. Like, at this point, we know what the team that we're playing is going to run, and they know what we're going to run. It's about getting stops and taking care of the basketball and making plays. And when we're drawing up stuff, that's time and score, right? That's time and score situations where we're actually drawing up some stuff and making some hard adjustments. There's been a few times where we've done that at halftime, but mostly it is making little bitty tweaks here and there, bringing some things to their attention that in the flow of the game they may not realize. Like at halftime, we had taken 12 threes already. 8 of them in the second quarter alone. We took 8 threes in the second quarter. And it's like, guys, we took 8 threes in the second quarter. Really? I didn't know that. Like, they just don't have, they get to going and they remember what they did. They don't put it together as a whole. And so that's what halftime is really for. And to talk about a few tweaks offensively and defensively.
Since we're being so philosophical today, the tough motto.
Yes.
Where are we at in tough? And some folks may not even know what it stands for. So we play a lovely video before the game.
Right.
We talk about it, but what is it and how is it resonating?
So obviously tough means what it means. There's a level of toughness this year that we needed to get to that we didn't have last year, and even in the summer we didn't have. And so we spend the whole summer evaluating our team, looking at our roster, and then somewhere between the time they go home and the time they come back before the first day of school, we come up with our motto based on just what we've seen over the summer. And so while we have made tremendous strides, we still felt like there was a level of toughness that we didn't have physically and mentally. So tough means tough. And then it's also an acronym, right? So why not turn it into more than one thing for us, right? Anytime we can squeeze the most juice out of that lemon, we're going to. And so obviously the T is for trust. We have 8 new players, 4 transfers and 4 freshmen blended with our returners. And so trust was a huge component for everybody. The O is for ownership. Like, can we take ownership for what it is we were supposed to do and be responsible for? The U is to be united. G is obviously to have some gratitude and to be grateful for what we have and the opportunity we have. This is a privilege. It's not a right. And then humility. There's a lot of players that are really talented on our team. You look across the country at NIL deals and just the media and the attention that they have, and just making sure that we handle that in the right way with a sense of humility and humbleness and a lack of pride and ego. So those are the acronyms for tough. What we've talked about a ton right now is ownership. Ownership and being consistent and or how you're showing up in a space, and not that they ever like even today, like they're more disappointed than we are. They are pleasers. They want to please. They're sad. They're upset, and so some of it is just the undue pressure they put on themselves. But just taking ownership for being consistent in how we show up.
You knew going into the season you were going to have a radically different roster, and the blend, as you said, was going to be super key. What were the approaches you've taken and maybe continue to take to ensure that blend and maybe unification happens? I'll throw in a word.
I think the first thing is we're very honest, very, very honest. That's the only way we operate. And so I think being honest and transparent allows everybody to see exactly what it is we're looking at and talking about, and it keeps them from making assumptions about things. And so being truthful and honest is the first thing we do. Ashley McCord's going to be on the radio show here in the next couple weeks. She is our player of development athletics culture, so she serves as our team chaplain for those who want it. Obviously, that's voluntary. And then she also does all of our team bonding, and that's not like a lot of teams have team bonding, and they go on a trip for a weekend, and they have team bonding, and that's it. We do that. We take our trip, in October, but then every other Saturday after practice, there's a team bonding session that Ashley leads. And so those are things that we do. So it's twice a month they're touching each other after practice in the meat of the season, to make sure that we're staying connected, that if there's a conversation that needs to be had, and that's without us as coaches, we're not in the room. Ashley leads that and facilitates that, and then deciphers what needs to come back to us and what doesn't, and most things don't. That's the trust we have with her. But I think because we're so intentional about making sure we create a space for that, because that comes out of our hours. You only get 40 hours a week with them, and so we give Ashley that time twice a month. That's how important it is. I think it's why we are connected. And when you look at the amount of change we had in our roster and the chemistry that our team has, it's because we are intentional about making sure they understand that it's important. The other piece I would say to that is it points back to the recruiting process. The type of young ladies we recruit and try to bring into Texas A&M have to reflect what we hope our motto is. It has to reflect, culture and fit, and we just believe that you can have talented players who are going to want to do it the way that we want, and that doesn't mean our way is right. It just means that's the way we do it, and we know that we ask them to do hard things. Our standard is probably a little bit higher than a lot of places in terms of what we require them to do, and so we make sure in the recruiting process that we are recruiting young ladies who are going to be on board and want to be excellent, and not only on the court, but in the classroom and in the community. And how much community service we do. Those are things that are non-negotiable in our program. And so it starts in that recruiting process as well.
I would assume it's one thing to recruit a young lady and with that set of expectations, but part of that journey is to make sure that once they're on campus that that's the same person. What happens when it's not?
Fortunately, it hasn't happened a ton for us. I think early on in my coaching career, it happened one time, and I said, I've got to figure this out because we can't miss. Like you, especially now, like when I was a player, you had 1-year scholarships, and they got renewed every year. Now, when you sign prospects, they are signing 5-year deals. So you're signing them for like the entirety of the time they're here. And so it's like you're bound, and it's very hard to get out of that. You can't move them for basketball reasons. It has to be for other reasons so that's just how the NCAA has it set up. So we start the process really early. I think that's
how early? You've talked, sometimes you're talking about 8th graders. How early is early?
We identify 8th, 9th grade and really start getting them on the phone between 9th and 10th grade. You know, they have to call us at that point, and I think that says a lot too, because we are not allowed to talk to them, to call them until the spring of their junior year, right? And so if a 9th grader and 10th grader is going to talk to us on the phone, they have to call us. And what I always say to them when they come on campus for a visit or the first time they call, I say pick a day and pick a time. Once a week or every other week. It's up to you, right? Weekly or biweekly. And tell me when it works in your schedule for you to call me. And if that works for me, I'll put it in my calendar, and I will be sitting by the phone expecting a call from you. It tells me, can they follow instruction? It tells me that they are interested in our program because we're not just chasing them down all the time. They're actually being proactive and calling us. And, I mean, that's what we did with Janiah. That's what we did with Sydney Bowles. Like, they called us once a week. And just when you do that for 3 years, you have a pretty good feel of who you're getting. Janiah Barker is exactly who we knew we were getting, right? Sydney Bowles is exactly who we knew we were getting because of the time, you know, we spent with them.
And we hear that and see that when the young ladies are on the show. I mean, hey, when's the first time? They vividly remember their first conversation with you. They had an early connection that they still smile about to this day, and that says a lot about the quality folks that you're recruiting.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, when we come back, we'll visit with Kristen Brown, the Deputy Athletic Director. I think she's running the place right now. I'm not sure. We'll get a check on that. We've got a litany of things to visit with her about. Plus, she had a research project earlier in the show. We'll see if she came up with the answers or not. We're live from Rudy's Barbecue. It's the Joni Taylor Radio Show from Learfield. Howdy, Steve Miller here, inviting y'all to visit Costa Vida, fresh Mexican grill. It's Baja-style Mexican, made from scratch daily, serving breakfast, tacos, lunch, and dinner. It's Aggie-owned and operated in South College Station. We're back on the Joni Taylor Radio Show at Rudy's Barbecue here on Harvey Road. Remind you that our next and last radio show for the season is February 27th. So mark your calendars. February 27th is our next and final Joni Taylor Radio Show for this season. The Aggies getting set to play at Ole Miss 6:30 on Thursday, and then at Kentucky 3 o'clock on Sunday. And I'm Steve Miller, along with the coach Joni Taylor. We're joined by Kristen Brown, the Deputy Athletic Director for Administration and Leadership, and the Senior Women's Administrator. How are you?
I am doing well, Steve. How are you?
Good. Are you running the place?
I wouldn't quite say that,
okay.
But we're enjoying having Coach Slocum around the office these days.
Tell us, I rambled off a long title, and we've done a great job over the years of creating long titles for ourselves. What are your responsibilities as we break your title down?
The short version of it is professional problem solver. But my day-to-day, I have executive oversight of our compliance unit, also our engagement unit. You mentioned senior woman administrator, so that means some things within the NCAA and SEC governance structure, a part of different committees, different meetings. Also with senior woman administrator comes duties in terms of Title IX and gender equity. And then I'm also what we call a sport administrator. So every sport at A&M has a senior level administrator that works directly with the coaches, with the student athletes, with all of the different support units that support those sports to make sure that we're continuing to move those sports forward.
We talked about the governance structure there, and it's a very key role that you play in that. Tell us more about where you fit in the governance structure. Folks may just think that rules and policies just happen, but what is the Reader's Digest version of the governance structure?
Sure. The short version is every head coaches group has an annual business meeting. And out of those business meetings come recommendations, anything from changes to a scheduling format to changing the tournament format, different rules specific to those sports. All of those things happen within a head coach's meeting. And then from there, those recommendations go to the senior women administrators. So we have oversight of every sport except for football and baseball. So we oversee all of the recommendations.
Men's basketball?
And men's basketball, thank you. So we oversee all of the recommendations that come out of all of the other sports. We vote on them. We might send them back to the coaches to have further dialogue about them. Maybe there was something about a particular recommendation that we didn't like or didn't agree with. So we'll send it back to the coaches. But then ultimately, it's our job to vet all of those recommendations and ultimately go to the ADs for final approval.
When you look at recommendations that may come from, let's say it was Joni or one of your other coaches, how do you balance your belief with what the coach wants if they don't align for some reason?
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? You obviously want to support your coach, and but ultimately our job is to do what's best for the whole SEC and what's best for advancing SEC women's basketball or whatever it is moving forward. Now, thankfully, Joni is a coach who has the big picture in mind and is always trying to advance SEC women's basketball, but just women's basketball in general. So we don't disagree a ton. But really, that's the role, is to help advance SEC, whatever the sport is, forward.
Sure. How often do these meetings among the SWAs occur?
Yep. So we have a monthly standing Zoom, which we actually have one this upcoming Friday. We meet in person at least 3 times a year. So once at the SEC Women's Basketball Tournament in March, once in Destin in May, and then we have a combined meeting with the athletic directors in October in Birmingham. But usually at least once a month, if not more often, but standing meetings once a month.
We're visiting with Deputy Athletic Director Kristen Brown, and Kristen joined up in spring of 2020. That's a remarkable time to join, wasn't it?
I survived and lived to tell about it.
Were you on the job for 2 weeks before COVID hit?
It wasn't even that. So I hadn't even officially started yet, but Ross wanted me to come to Greenville for the SEC Women's Basketball Tournament and be a part of the SWA meeting that year, and then also come to Nashville for the men's tournament because there was an AD's meeting there. So I was actually in Nashville but hadn't officially started yet in my role when everything happened and sports got shut down and the world kind of changed in an instant.
How'd you get involved in basketball?
Wow. I don't know if there was a time in my life that I wasn't involved with basketball. My dad was kind of a local high school legend, actually played baseball in college, but my dad taught me the game. I have an older brother who's 3 years older, and he played basketball, so I wanted to play basketball. He played high school basketball, so I needed to play high school basketball. He was a Division I basketball student athlete, so I had to be a Division I basketball student athlete. So it's always kind of been a part of my life, and thankfully had supportive parents who funded all of our basketball adventures, and that has led me to where I am today.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Rockford, Illinois, which is about an hour outside of Chicago. If anybody has seen the movie A League of Their Own, the Rockford Peaches, that is my Rockford.
Did you want to be a Rockford Peach?
No, honestly, I never played baseball or softball, which ironically I mentioned, my dad played baseball. My mom played softball as an adult in some fast pitch leagues, but never played baseball or softball. Was always either basketball, volleyball, track and field, or soccer.
You have a few more minutes to stick with us?
I do.
Perfect. We have more questions for you, but we're going to take a time out. It's the Joni Taylor Radio Show from Learfield. Texas Farm Bureau Insurance wants to give you a VIP Aggie basketball fan experience this year. Go to 12thman.com/maroon contest and register. One winner and a guest will receive game tickets, a VIP tour of Reed Arena, and will be recognized on the video board during the game. Register today at 12thman.com/maroon contest. Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, proud partner of Texas A&M Athletics. We're back at Rudy's Barbecue, Harvey Road here in College Station. It's the Joni Taylor Radio Show with Joni Taylor. I'm Steve Miller, and we continue our conversation with Deputy Athletic Director Kristen Brown. And Kristen, while we've been sitting here, I'm told that the NIL rules changed again. So can you just give us a 60-second briefer for somebody who doesn't know what NIL is, because all they hear is the phrase NIL and they can't piece it all back together. They have no idea. Sure. What is the very kindergarten version of this?
I will make it definitely very kindergarten. NIL stands for name, image, likeness, and essentially student athletes now have the ability to profit off of their name, image, likeness. So whether that's doing an ad for Rudy's Barbecue or doing a tweet for another local or national brand, they have the ability to now monetize off of that, whereas when I was a student athlete, there was no chance anything like that was happening.
Did you want it to have happened when you were a student, or were there ways that you said, hey, I could get this or that?
I think the only way I would have thought about doing it was running a camp. That was a big thing when I was a student athlete, was working camps, whether that was back at your high school in your hometown or for your respective university. So that would probably be the way that I would have looked to have done it as a student athlete. But the way that they do it now and being active on social media and Instagram and TikTok and all those things, that is not what I do. That is not my strong suit. So I'd have a little bit different approach than some of our current students.
But we do joke that the rules change constantly, and they very well could have changed just since then. And we've got legislatures, both state and federal, maybe getting involved in all these things. We won't get into any of that. We'll try to stick to the very basics in this. Joni, what role is NIL playing in women's basketball these days?
Well, if you look at, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston last year, even some of our players, I think that it has shown the value that women have in sports. And for so long, we were told, take your ball and be happy that we're giving you a space to play. We were told, you're not a revenue-generating sport. We were told so many things about just be happy to be here. And I think what NIL has done is brought awareness and attention to the fact that we have some women athletes in our sport who can do a lot to bring awareness and also to bring revenue to not only themselves but to bring attention to our game. And so I think it has helped grow our game in a lot of ways. And obviously, for us, if there's an opportunity for our players to truly benefit off of what it should be, their name, image, and likeness, we want that for them. Yeah,
for years, professional athletes have had the ability to read a commercial. We see all these insurance commercials with different athletes and things. And those things, while we see them in real time, they happen in the off season many times. This can be very successful and not take away from a young lady's or a young man's playing and practice times.
Right. So I think that for NIL, the other thing is it still can't be on university property. Like, you can't take a picture. It has to be your name, image, and likeness. So you're not using logos of the university that you or the institution that you play for unless that sponsor has bought the logo. And there are some opportunities for that to happen. And the other thing that we have in our rule book is your NIL agreement cannot interfere with practice or academics the same way if you had a job, it couldn't interfere with practice and academics. And so we make sure that we prioritize that.
How can people get involved? Because they may want to be involved, whether they have a business or just have money they want to donate. There is avenue for that.
Sure. I mean, the easiest way is to contact Jamie Wood in our athletic department. He is our assistant AD for name, image, likeness. There's obviously also Texas Aggies United, which is the official collective for Texas A&M athletics or for the department. And so those would be the two easiest ways to get involved with NIL.
Yeah, and there are ways to get people connected through those channels and then let the magic happen however that happens. They're building a new academic center.
We are.
How is that? What's the timeline on that?
Well, August, it's supposed to be done.
On time and on budget?
Every day when I walk my laps around the stadium and I'm looking at the progress and I'm looking at my watch and it's February 6th but our head of capital projects said it will be on time, so hopefully come August it will be completed.
Not only just an academic center, there are other features that are in there. Can you give a couple of sneak peeks into that facility?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a 25-plus person academic staff, and that's just full-time staff, but then another 100 members of tutors and mentors who will also be in that building. There'll be academic labs. There will also be our NIL suite. So once Jamie gets into that building, he'll start to build out his staff, and we'll be able to do some things internally from an NIL perspective. Our sports psychology unit will also be housed in there. Our new nutrition center will also be there, which that obviously supports all of our student athletes. And then we've got some extra space in there that, as long as college athletics continues to grow. We've got some space to continue to grow as athletics continues to grow.
It'll be a nice change from the All-American Club at Kyle Field that Academics Nutrition has been currently located at during a transition.
You know, I think the staff has actually really enjoyed being over there. It's been nice to have staff, student athletes all in one place. There's been actually a really cool vibe if you go in there and have lunch or dinner. The music in there, the TV's going. It's very active with all of our student athletes. So I think our staff has actually appreciated having that temporary setup.
It's not like a quiet library. This we Academics is a very engaging place.
Yes, very, very lively.
Yes. Now you may put your headphones on if you would not like to engage in that way. All right. So we won't ask you where college athletics is heading. We'll save that.
Because no one knows that answer.
Oh, no one knows that answer. Oh, let me write that down. No one knows that answer, and we'll have you back in 5 minutes to talk more about NIL. No, we'll leave you with that. Kristen, thank you for joining us. Appreciate all your insight. And we're looking forward to have you on the show again another time.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
All right, that's our Deputy Athletic Director, Kristen Brown. We're live at Rudy's Barbecue. It's the Joni Taylor Radio Show from Learfield. Back at Rudy's Barbecue, it's the Joni Taylor Radio Show with Joni Taylor. I'm Steve Miller. Got just a few minutes left in this program. Reminder that the next and final Joni Taylor Radio Show is Tuesday, February 27th at 6 p.m. We're on hiatus the next couple of weeks, and then we'll have one final regular week of the season at the end of February. Joni, we often visit with assistant coaches, but I'm not sure when I was checking back on things we've asked them what some of their other duties are. Are they specific to a certain position? Do they just come up here and recruit and smile and tell funny stories? Tell us about some of the assistant coach duties as they pertain to each coach.
I don't know if we have enough time, but I'll try to give you the short version, the elementary version.
Now we can do NIL again.
No. So they do so many things. We have guard-specific coaches. So Rodney Hill is our guard coach. Robert Mosley is our forward or our post coach, and Chelsea is our hybrid coach. So we have some players like AC, Sahara, who kind of go back and forth between guard and forward, and so she's our hybrid, can kind of move around and go anywhere. And so they have individual workouts, they watch film, they come up with strategy based on who we're playing based on position. We also have liaisons. We're a big believer in, structure from the top down. So of all the departments that touch our program, compliance, nutrition, strength and conditioning, academics, whatever it is, we have a liaison, and our assistant coaches are the liaison. So we have a compliance question. Chelsea is going to be the one that reaches out to Susan Tatum, because I don't want to have a question and email Susan, and then 2 days later Rob has a question and emails Susan, and then Rodney emails Susan, and before you know it, we've asked Susan the same question 4 different ways. It also allows us to streamline and document communication, and we can just type in one person's name, Chelsea to Susan, and we have a running tab of everything we've ever asked her. And so Chelsea's our compliance liaison, Rodney Hill is our academic liaison, Robert Mosley is our strength and conditioning and nutrition and performance liaison. So any of our changes of schedule or report outs from nutrition and sports performance go through Rob. So that's how we streamline communication so that everybody's on the same page. Obviously, they recruit. They're constantly on the phone. Rodney Hill is out recruiting today in Texas. I can say that because it's one of the players we signed, to Leah Parker. He's out watching her play in possibly her final game. And so he's scouting, he's prepping, and then he's on the road. There's so many hats that they wear.
They also pre-assign certain teams and opponents that they're going to lead the scout for.
Correct.
And I guess some of the importance is the head coach can't do everything, and I think some head coaches try to do everything. How have you been mindful to dictate this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it from the get-go?
I learned a lot from working with Coach Landers, and his plan and his organizational structure was really, really good, and so I copied a lot of his things. But when the schedule comes out, we sit down, and especially in conference, like Chelsea has Florida, Rob has Ole Miss. Rob has scouted Ole Miss for 10 years now, right? So even though there's been a coaching change in between that, he's super familiar with what they do. And so as much as possible, when we're going to play a common opponent every year, we try to keep those assistant coaches on those same teams because of the familiarity that comes with it. And then in the non-conference, we just literally go, Rodney, Chelsea, Rob, Rodney, Chelsea, Rob. And so, for instance, we played Mississippi State on Sunday. After the game was over and I've done media and I'm finished with everything, Rob is waiting for me in the office, and he has a folder about Ole Miss. And he hands me the folder. He has a folder, and we're reading through Ole Miss. It's the Cliff Notes. It's the cheat sheet. This is what we got to figure out. And then he's relieved of Ole Miss, and so my homework starts. And so I spend Sunday, Monday, trying to get caught up on everything Ole Miss because my mind's been on Mississippi State, and then I see him today.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That was great, and you hit the music cue right on plan. All right, Joni, thank you. We'll see you guys here in a couple of weeks. We're on the road for a couple of games, and then back to Reed Arena in about a week and a half from now. Our thanks to Kristen Brown, our Deputy AD, our engineers Jeanette Minchow, and Tony O'Neill back in Jefferson City. For Coach Taylor, I'm Steve Miller. Have a great night. This has been the Joni Taylor Radio Show from Learfield.